Hello and welcome to another episode of the FPL Hangover podcast, where we raise the bar and lower the tone, all things FPL related. This week, with brute force and ignorance, we have dragged ourselves through the international break. To be fair to us here on the Irish island, we've had it better than some pretty significant qualifiers over the last couple of days, and still some more to come. But this is about much more than the hopes of a nation. This is about the FPL universe, and it is our duty, nay our privilege, to bring you fine folk some FPL entertainment. And here to passionately shit all over that, we know that he's STD free since 2003, but right now he's testing Wildcard positive, my podcast partner in crime. Seamus, how are you getting on, my friend?
Good. I've got the disease, Wildcard. So it's in my veins at the moment, but I have taken a few days off it. I hope you've all enjoyed the international break and are enjoying these international games and have taken a well-needed rest. I definitely needed a rest from FPL for a few days. Back at this fresh and attack the old Wildcard.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting being on Wildcard during the international break. I mean, I've obviously been there, and I don't know if I prefer the extra week. Thinking about it kind of wrecks my head a bit. Do you find that, or do you like the 2 weeks, or would you rather just if you did it in one game week?
I like the extra week because I like to go, right, I know which players I want out of my team, get them out, get in players I think are going to rise in price, like Mane after scoring the last day, you could see the net transfers coming in, or Aubameyang, whoever has like nice fixtures, try and get in on top of these trends and try and catch a double price rise if you can.
They're rare though this year. Like when I did my wildcard, and I'm with you, I mean, that is the big advantage of the international break, is that you do get to kind of catch those price rise. You have longer to catch a price rise, but I find like they rise to 0.1 and then you're waiting on them to go that 0.2, but you haven't made your mind up till Friday, and it's probably the Saturday morning that they're going to jump up that 0.2, and I just don't have the balls to wait it out.
Yeah, that's kind of where it is right now as well for me. So I've made my early transfers last week, got rid of the guys I knew I definitely wanted to get rid of. I held on to some guys I wasn't sure about because I was like, if I get rid now, I might lose value. The example being Cantwell, but he was like, I was up 0.5 on him, so I was like, I could take a 0.1 drop.
0.5. Oh yeah, but you were getting 0.3 or something, was it?
Well, I was going to get 4.7 back from him anyway, and
Okay.
I got him at 4.5, so it didn't matter if he dropped 0.1, I'd still get back that 4.7. So I was like, I'll wait on him because I might just downgrade him to like 4.4. Then Donker's 4.4 now, and I think I might just cash in that 0.3 and use it elsewhere. But the difficult thing is knowing, who you want to get. And I can't decide what strategy exactly I'm going to go with because I don't know what De Bruyne's long-term injury status is. Is this Salah injury, serious or not? That being said, I've binned off Salah.
Yeah.
So, but if he's gone, does that make Mane more appealing? There's all these things to consider.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like we have a lot of questions that are kind of going to skirt around a lot, most of these topics, and I wanted this episode to kind of focus a bit more on your wildcard anyway. I mean, it is the international break. We are recording this on a Monday evening, so we debated whether or not to record it later after the internationals and have that bit more info for anyone listening. But realistically, it's probably not going to change what we're thinking all that too much. I mean, if we were to be that pragmatic about when we record, we might as well record on a Friday afternoon. After the pressers,
when you know who's going to miss this weekend's games and not. But you record that on Friday evening, then who's going to get to hear this information in time?
And we don't want anyone to suffer from hangover detox. So it was just like fuck it.
So
get it done.
Everything we probably discuss today, it's the same every week.
Yeah.
It's the same when we record every Monday. It's always like, well, look, there's going to be news throughout the week, and it's no different than an international break. I mean, I would say this is the same as if there's Champions League game on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
The same advice applies. Keep an eye on what they say. We'll keep an eye on what Klopp says or Pep says. And
yeah, if anything, it's even less, significant than a Champions League on a Wednesday because, there's going to be players rested and not everyone's got matches from the big teams. But look, getting onto it more specifically, you have that wildcard in your back pocket. You've activated it. What are you looking at now as a team? I mean, you've kind of got this unique position from a podcasting perspective in the sense that you have a blank slate. It's an episode. Oh, thanks a lot for that. It's an episode where you can approach this from a dream perspective. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. So like, where's your thoughts lying now?
Well, I'll start with what my team is looking at right now. I've still stuck with Pope and goals. I've got McGovern as my backup keeper. Might as well keep him. He's 4.0. He seems to be the starting keeper now. I'm not sure what the Norwich keeper injury situation is.
He's a 100% penalty saving record this season.
Oh, he does? Yeah. He saved the penalty in 50% of the games he's played in. And yeah, Krull could be back, but I don't care. I'm never going to play him. So 4.6 keeper. Pope has gone up another 0.1. I think he's 4.7 now.
He is, yeah.
So I could, sell him and try and get in somebody for 0.1 cheaper if I needed it. But no, I like Pope. I think Burnley are going to keep clean sheets. I've come off all other Burnley assets. So
Barnes is gone.
Barnes is gone. I can't, 4 games, no goals. That's too long. I should have got rid of him maybe after 2 or 3 games.
I think with Barnes, he's suffering from the fact that there's only 3 striker spots and forwards are in fashion right now.
Yeah, actually, I'd start with my team starting from the forwards back because this whole team is built around my forwards now. Abandoning the big at the back formation, but I've been moving away from that anyway. Van Dijk is gone. I'm going to keep one Liverpool defender. I've no problem with Robertson, but it has to be Alexander-Arnold in there. 7.2. Still think he's going to be the top scoring defender by the end of the season.
You might have gone to forward heavy, but you're back to talking about defenders. I think we know where your heart lies, Seamus.
But I'm just saying this is where I've got rid of the big at the back, and Van Dijk's gone to free up the move there and put the money up front. Salah's also gone.
Oof.
And the money is gone in. At the moment, it's Aubameyang, Vardy, and Abraham. Now, I am thinking Wilson as well. But I can't really afford that. If I'm going Wilson, I've got to get rid of Aubameyang. So the question for me right now is, Abraham is a lock in there because their fixtures are so good, and he's just being great value for money.
So looking at your team, just lock wise, Abraham's locked in there.
Yeah.
Looks like Mount is locked in.
Mount is locked in.
De Bruyne.
Alexander-Arnold is locked in. De Bruyne is locked in as long as he's fit.
Yeah, as things stand right now, he's locked in.
And I'd like to say Sterling is a lock. But he's not.
Oh, man, I'm worried that that's faltering with you. Because I'm seeing a lot of, people kind of questioning Sterling at the moment and going, yeah, maybe 3 game weeks, not so much, but this happened last year.
But the only reason I'm saying he's not a lock, and I am going to keep, persistence with him. I'm going to be persistent with him, keep patience with him, I suppose.
So he's a lock.
Unlike, as I said, unless I don't want to be saying, he's a lock, and then news emerges throughout the week that, whoever is injured, and I'm going to go, then I have to get Manny now or something like that, So
well, yeah, of course, but that's the beauty of having a wildcard and an unforeseen.
The only locks in my team are the guys who are value for money.
Okay. And
while Sterling is an excellent option, and I have no intention of getting rid of him, I think he's a better option than Mane or Salah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair
enough. He's close to a lock, but even Vardy, Aubameyang, those guys aren't locks. One of those guys could change to Wilson. I have Saka for Arsenal, who's 4.5. He's my 4.5 guy. I still have Cantwell, but there are moves I could make to change him into someone like Yarmolenko. I'm going to have, I might as well have one bench fodder. So that Saka guy will be my bench fodder. He's playing at the moment. He's 4.5. There's no point having a 4.5 bench striker who's not getting any minutes like Wickham. Will eventually drop in price. So
would you not drop to a 4.4 Dendonker?
Yeah, I could do that. What I might do is drop to him, as I said, from Cantwell, cash that, and then I could make Saka, Yarmolenko. But yeah. Saka or Dendonker are probably going to be there. There's no point having, 8 playing forwards and then having to bench one, because I'll definitely get that decision wrong.
Yeah, no, of course. And you don't want that fucking headache every week anyway.
Yeah, so then Alexander-Arnold, I've still got Otamendi in there. If you look at it on the face of it, Man City's fixtures are excellent. They just, for the next 3 at least, Crystal Palace away and then 2 home games against Villa and Southampton, you got to think those are 2 clean sheets, and he's a goal threat. But yeah, you can't feel confident with Man City defence at the moment. I'm
not too worried though, for the price you're paying for Otamendi. If he was a 6.5 Man City defender, say I was sitting on a Laporte or something like that, and the City were conceding the goals they are conceding now. I know that's a bit hypocritical because they probably wouldn't be if he was starting. But, I'd be a lot more worried with 6.5 invested in their defence than I would be with a 5.4. We both got on at 5.4.
Yeah, it's just that I'm kind of thinking if I'm coming off this big at the back, maybe I should be coming completely off this big at the back. But at the moment I haven't. Now, one of the ways I'm thinking, I'll just go through the rest of my back line. So I've mentioned Alexander-Arnold and Otamendi. I have Sayuncu. I have Fredericks there for West Ham, who have nice fixtures, and John Lundstram, who isn't going anywhere. He's been there since the start of the season. Got him for 4.0. Excellent value. Not going to cash that in. He'll be used when he's a good fixture, and he'll be benched when he's got a bad fixture. So that's straightforward enough. If I go Callum Wilson instead of Aubameyang, I'd end up saving 3.1 million.
Quite a bit.
So that would give me a whole lot more money. And I could have, say, even keeping the same players, that would allow me to, instead of having Cantwell, it would give me someone that I could get up to 7.9 million. So that could become Maddison. My reasoning is, I had Maddison last season. I don't know if I want him this season, even though he looks good. Last season he was playing well, but he wasn't getting the points.
And you got on him at the wrong time, as in you missed the majority of his points.
Yeah, he did well at the start, then he went blank for a while, then he got a goal, then he again went cold for a while. So at the end of the season, he's a bit streaky. His stats were okay, but they were underwhelming. He kind of slightly underperformed his price, I thought. So I don't know, I'm kind of reluctant to go back on him. I think the player I want for Leicester is one defender and Jamie Vardy.
Yeah.
Pereira could be a good option, and we've seen a lot of net transfers in for him this week, but I'm happy for 4.6 for Sion-Chu.
Yeah, no, I do, and I think your team looks good, and as I said, we're going to be revisiting this throughout the episode, but you mentioned transfer activities there, and I know you were kind of looking at them, and I think it's kind of worth noting that, over the international break, things might go a bit more quiet on, the old social media, but, there's still fucking shit happening in the transfers activity section, and we're seeing price rises, and when you look at the top transfers in this week, it's not too surprising to see Mane at the top, especially after his goal last weekend.
There's tons of transfers. People are doing the straight swap, I think, from Salah to Mane. Salah is the second most transferred out player this week. 280,000 people transferring him out, which is almost the same number that have transferred Mane in. So obviously he had that ankle injury. Mm-hmm. So people are going, I could just save myself 1 million here. And that 1 million might be allowing people to go from Barnes up to Abraham or something like that, or up to Wilson, depending on how much money they have in the bank. So I think that's what a lot of people are doing. They're seeing this fixture swing and they're thinking, okay, well, I still want that Liverpool coverage. Mane seems to be scoring just as well, so let's cash it in.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, like, you're on a wild card, so, if you were to get a Liverpool asset in right now, you mentioned it in the last episode, but I assume things haven't changed. You'd be going Mane?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I'd be going Mane. I think I'm coming off Salah now. I'm not going to have any Liverpool midfielder for the next 4. Just historically, they don't do well at Old Trafford. They haven't won their last 3 visits there. They've only scored, 2 goals in their last 3 games there. The last game was 0-0.
Yeah.
Could completely change this year, but Liverpool haven't been on fire. Man United have looked very poor this season, but they always raise their game against Liverpool, so I don't see a ton of goals. Could be Salah 1-0, who knows, but I'm happy to go without Liverpool assets in that one. Spurs are a bit of a shit show, so I guess you could say, look, Liverpool at home to Spurs could be 4-0. I don't see it. That's a few weeks away again, so Spurs could improve.
Yes, and then Spurs are a shit show though by top 6 standards, and what they're capable of doing, not by just an average kind of team. They could easily put a game to Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean they played Champions League final against them last season. They lost 2-1, but it wasn't runaway. Liverpool were the much better team, but it wasn't like 3 or 4-0.
2-0, not 2-1.
Oh, was it 2-0? Oh, yes, it was. It was 1-0 for most of the game. And it was, for some reason, I thought 2-1.
No, I think Spurs didn't look like scoring them on the Sundays.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be something similar, I think. And then the Man City game in Game Week 12. The only worry there would be that Aston Villa game in Game Week 11. But, look, I'm willing to roll the dice and go, you know what? Someone like Aubameyang or Vardy or Wilson, I think will just score just as well as Salah in that period.
Yeah, no, I think everything you said there is perfectly valid, and I mean, as you mentioned, Liverpool do play 3 of the top 6 in the next 4 matches, and that's always going to be something that, even if you feel confident that they could pick up 4 clean sheets and win 4 matches, which I could easily see them doing, I'm still not going to be too excited to have any of their players in my team. Looking forward to them that week. I'll still be going, hopefully they do well. Like, I have a Salah against Spurs. Yeah, I can see Spurs losing to Liverpool. Fingers crossed,
We say it every week in our hot shots and puck fadas and stuff like that. We always say, like, they're always filled with Liverpool and Man City players.
exactly.
So it doesn't matter like that, Liverpool were playing Leicester last week. You were all about Mane, and he did well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like looking at some of the other transfer activities, I think the one that stands out to me is the Pookie being top of the transfers out with 311k so far. I think it's fair to say that the Pookie party is well and truly over.
Oh yeah. So I mentioned Barnes as the example of people getting rid of Barnes and using the money they might have saved on Salah to upgrade to the likes of Abraham. And it's no surprise to see that the big transfers in are all the players I mentioned there a while ago. Vardy, Aubameyang, Abraham. And those, especially Abraham and Vardy, they're probably being facilitated by people deciding time to get off this Pookie plane or whatever it was called. So 311,000 transfers out. Abraham's got 198,000 transfers in. This is of Monday lunchtime. Aubameyang's 112,000 transfers in. Yeah. Vardy 91,000 transfers in. Yeah.
All people to throw a spanner in the works of your wildcard, Seamus, and to wreck your head for the next foreseeable future. So with that in mind, let's get this party started a bit earlier than usual. But hey, it's international break. Let's fucking have a bit of fun. Get that drunk tank open, Seamus.
Yeah, so we have lots of questions this week. Surprising because I put the question out super late. But yeah, a lot of people are eager to talk FPL now after having had their international break.
I find my FPL thirst grows stronger on the international break, Seamus. So I consume as much podcasts as I can.
Yeah, and that vodka and Boost energy drink there is not sating your appetite.
No, sip of beer for the working man, and sip of beer to all those who sent in a question this week.
And yeah, the first question is from Barry McNamara. He is asking, all right, he can only have two of Wilson, Vardy and Abraham, but which two should he go for? I mean, those are the guys who are all being transferred in. I didn't mention Wilson on the transfer in list there, but he's just shortly below those. And if you look at Wilson's fixtures, this week is a plum. The next two games are plum games against the two worst defences in the league. Norwich at home this week and away to Watford in game week 10. I mean, that he has to be a lock in your team, does he? This is why I'm looking at, like, that Norwich at home looks a much better fixture than Aubameyang away at Sheffield United.
Yeah, see, I have Wilson. And you're right. The Norwich match, I feel like that's going to be a goal fest.
Yeah.
I think both teams are massively high, goals conceded or, goals expected to be conceded, whatever fucking thing people say these days. But, both teams are conceding a lot of shots. And I can easily see, now I know Norwich have a poor away record, but I can easily see a couple of goals for Norwich in that match. I'm expecting something like a 3-2 Bournemouth, Mm-hmm. Just because Bournemouth do concede and Norwich do create chances even when they're losing. But of the three that you mentioned, Vardy, Abraham and Wilson, I think Wilson and Abraham for me, no doubt. The two of them...
I think so too, actually.
Yeah.
I'd agree with you there.
I think the two of them, like with Wilson's fixtures, as you mentioned, he's had one blip this season against Arsenal. I've had him, and as I mentioned on last week's episode, there's been some shaky moments. I mean, the start of the season, and it's easy to say he's returned in, all of his matches bar one, but the first couple were relatively poxy returns, and even his goal against Southampton was a relatively poxy goal as well. So you're kind of going, subtract that little bit of luck he's been getting, and does he just dry up? Now, I don't really think so, and as I said, I think Bournemouth will score some goals against Norwich. So Wilson seems to be at the forefront of everything, really.
Yeah, and one thing that's just to be mentioned there is I don't know what the story with Fraser is at the moment, but Fraser and him usually connect really well. So he's scoring these goals without this supply line that he used to have all last season, putting the ball in front of him to knock it into the net. So he's still getting goals, and he has looked good in some of the games I've seen. He's looked poor in other games, but he's managed to come out with returns. But some games he's has looked very good and has been unlucky not to get like more than one goal. So yeah, I like Wilson. I think he's definitely in there. And Tammy Abraham, Chelsea's fixtures are just crazy good, and he's been performing excellently. I gotta have him in there as well. I like Vardy. I think for me it's going to come down between. I think Wilson's coming in. I think it's going to be between Vardy and Aubameyang, and then I gotta look at Leicester at home to Burnley, and Arsenal away to Sheffield United. But that's my own decision. For you, Barry, I'm going to recommend the same as Cher, which is Abraham and Wilson.
Stall the ball, Seamus. Stall the ball, because you dare not speaketh for me. I'm also thinking of doing that this week in terms of coming off Salah and turning Greenwood into a Vardy or an Aubameyang. But I would also have Wilson and Abraham. So I'm set with the Wilson and Abraham. I think they're the two to go for as your in relation to the question. But I don't want anyone to look at my team and go, this motherfucker ended up getting Vardy or Aubameyang in.
That's a third striker, and you're basically upgrading Greenwood to this third striker. So that's a different question. That's like Aubameyang or Salah or Vardy or Salah.
Exactly. No, but I'm with you. Vardy and Abraham.
Don't do it though.
Wilson and Abraham.
I think I actually said this to you. I don't know if it was on last week's pod or just in a message. I was like promoting that, and then I was like, why am I telling him this? Our team's going to end up being the same again.
Yeah, which is fine. Which is fine by me. I'm 40 points ahead of you.
Yeah, this is the thing. Got to start playing the mind games again. Next question comes from FPL Rossi. Okay, he's asked, is Vardy a safer pick than Aguero for the next 6 game weeks or so? So that's someone we haven't mentioned, Aguero, because Man City have excellent fixtures as well in the next 3. Crystal Palace away, Aston Villa at home, Southampton at home. Then they get a bit tougher with Liverpool and Chelsea. But just looking at those next 3, what do you think? Do you think... or have you any consideration for Aguero? Because if you're coming off Salah, that means you could probably get Aguero.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned Aguero there, and he's someone that, considering how much we both rate him as an FPL legend, we've given very little love to this season, podcast-wise, and I think that's because Sterling, pretty much took the limelight a bit this season, and picked it up and continued it for the first 4 to 5 game weeks.
A hat-trick in game week 1 will be distracting.
It is a little bit distracting. We were both on him. So that was basically our Aguero slot covered. And he is coming in at, 12.1 at the moment, 12.2?
Yeah, he's definitely had a price rise anyway.
Yeah. So, is Vardy a safer pick than Aguero? I mean, you look at Leicester's next 3 fixtures, Burnley, Southampton, Crystal Palace and Arsenal and Brighton. That's the next 5. And you look at Aguero with Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Southampton, then Liverpool, Chelsea. When you factor in, as he mentions there, the Jesus rotation, for me, that's enough to put me off investing 12 points odd in a striker.
There's also the rumours that Aguero is carrying a knock based on what the Argentina manager said.
Yeah, I don't doubt that he's carrying a knock. Like, before we started recording this, I saw a tweet from the official Manchester City page, and they were happy to share images of Aguero and KDB in training. So, I mean, that's pretty positive news coming out of their camp. But
big beautiful smiles on their faces, they looked happy.
Yeah, I don't doubt Aguero is carrying a knock. I feel like he's been carrying that knock though for quite a bit, and it's obviously something minor, but that they want to manage, and sending them off to Argentina is a bit of a stress that they could maybe do without.
It feels like he's kind of got managing tightness in his, I don't know, hamstrings or quads or something like that, and it's just kind of a case of, when the match is won. I think the only risk there, Rossi, is when they're 3 or 4 goals up, the call is going to be, okay, well, now we get Aguero off. Yeah. And we saw that last year, but it didn't affect Aguero's points last year. I don't see why it would affect them this year either.
See, what I would say to that, Seamus, and I agree with you in the sense that I would be far more worried about that Jesus rotation than I would be of any knock he's carrying. But last year, Jesus was, he was injured for a bit. Aguero's minutes were being managed at the start of the season. Jesus picked up that knock. Aguero pretty much was nailed on for X amount of game weeks and, solidified himself in the Man City starting 11. This season, I think Jesus has shown a bit of form. He scored Champions League goals. I think he's hungry. Pep knows that Aguero is maybe coming to the end of his time at City, whether he has a season or 2 or 3 left in him. Maybe Pep sees Jesus as the kind of way forward, and I think we'll see more minutes for Jesus this season than we did last year. That's all I'll say. Now, I feel like I say that every FPL season, and last year proved to be the exception as opposed to the year before.
So you think that Jesus is an even better option than Aguero or Vardy? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
On this podcast?
Rossi, go straight for Jesus. Put all your money in that bank, my friend.
Well, I'm going to say do not do that, because Jer is just a wild man over here. Because that is the next part of his question. He says, if not Vardy for Aguero, then who? He has Tammy already. Now, we both just espouse the virtues of Callum Wilson there, so I'm going to say Wilson is the guy we're talking about there, or maybe Aubameyang, if you're interested in that.
Yeah, see, I mean, it really depends on what way you want to structure your team a little bit. Like, are you keeping, like, for me to get Aubameyang in, it's because I'm sacrificing the Salah. and that's something I'm willing to do over the next couple of weeks. But someone that isn't, willing to do that it's completely understandable. I'm not even sure I'm going to do it myself. But yeah. I mean, like if not Vardy for Aguero, then who? I mean, Aubameyang and Wilson. They're the top two.
Yeah,
simple as that. They're the two strikers I'd be looking at. There's no really need to debate that much further.
Yeah. A question we've got here from Alex at Alex_FPL. What is your preference between playing a fifth midfielder or a third forward? This week he's torn between Maupay or Bernardo Silva.
That's an interesting one, Alex. Well, for me, it depends on the third forward, but I mean, I always kind of prefer to have that decision pretty much locked down every week. When I'm planning my team, I decide whether I'm going to want to, like, one of those positions, either the third forward or the fifth midfielder. They're going to be pretty much bench fodder for me.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. That I'm locked into a decision the same way, because I'm going to have a 4.5 third forward or a 4.5 fifth mid. But maybe if you take that point there, so what would be your preference? Which would you have the fodder for at the moment? Because I believe there's so many good striker options at the minute that I'm moving from having a 4.5 third striker to a 4.5 fifth midfielder now.
Yeah. Well, right now I would be the same as you. I think at the start of the season, no one was very convinced on which forwards were going to bang. Everyone was talking about big at the back, so no one was looking at the likes of Aubameyang, Cain, Aguero. If they were looking at one and then a cheap, maybe three cheap, maybe you saw yourself. So that has changed a bit, and it's changed for me too.
And it will change like later in the season as well. Like game week 16, it could be back to get that bench fodder forward again.
Yeah, I mean, something simple as Aaron Connolly becoming a 4.5 option could end up changing this. Say he bangs in a goal against Villa this week, and they've got Everton and Norwich in the next two, and then you're thinking to yourself, all of a sudden I can have a play-in striker for that price.
Yeah,
that's a hell of an asset to have in your team, and it's something that he's a player that everyone's going to be monitoring. And you talked about Maupay there. If Connolly continued to get minutes, I'd be just dropping Maupay straight down to Connolly, and you'd get the same thing for 1.5 million less. In terms of, as we said, a fifth midfielder or a third forward, right now it's third forward all the way. And in regards to Maupay and Bernardo Silva, both those players for me are kind of fence-sitting players. I would be downgrading one or the other, and taking my beans and investing in it kind of a bit heavier, kind of picking a side, if you will.
Well, you see, I'm not sure who I'd go for between either of those two guys, because one has a horrible hair dye job and the other is a bit of a racist, isn't he? So I don't know.
Which is worse?
Bench them both, play an extra defender. No, let's see. Brighton are playing Villa this week. I've kind of liked Maupay recently, but I think I'd always play a Man City player over a Brighton player, personally, especially Brighton away from home.
And the beauty of Pep Roulette is that Silva mightn't even touch the pitch this week, and you might get Maupay regardless. So
exactly, that's the other thing to be. I mean, now I've said there I'm preferring having the 4.5 fifth midfielder.
Yeah.
But there's going to be plenty of excellent managers at the moment who are just playing two forwards all season, and they're loading up the midfield and they're doing excellent. So that's not to say that you can do both options. Just choose one and go for it. There's no wrong option here. But I think we both have tried the 4.5 million forward and it hasn't been working, and we're like, fuck this shit. Let's get on. Let's try something different.
Yeah, and I think you said there's no wrong options. What you probably meant to say, Seamus, is that there are no wrong options, but no matter what you pick, it'll be a wrong option.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me. I was like, this motherfucker's going correcting me. Oh yeah, you're gonna speak for me now, Jer.
No, it was a joke. I was trying to make a witty joke.
I appreciate it. No, you are right, of course, because it doesn't matter what I touch. I mean, this wildcard, when we come back here in a few game weeks, it's going to be really interesting to see how this wildcard goes, because the way things have been going this season, it's not been pretty.
I hope it all goes downhill for you, James, and I say that with the nicest possible way in my heart. I just think it'll make for fantastic entertainment watching you pull your hair out over the course of the next 30 game weeks.
Well, we started this podcast last year and we called it the FPL Hangover for these exact same reasons, but last season went swimmingly for both of us. Well, not for you. It did, but you did okay. You did what, 77k or something like that?
Yeah, the big picture.
Your worst season, but like
Yeah, big picture wasn't that bad, and I mean it was more of a really bad period throughout the year that dropped me down. I had brief spells of sunlight, where I could see the tops of the clouds, and it was fantastic. So I'm not complaining about last year. This year, though, yeah, especially for yourself, it started off slow, but maybe it's like a Cadillac; it doesn't get going until it's 60.
Okay.
Game week 60.
Good friend of the pod here, FPL Chieftain. I'm just moving swiftly on.
Can't say good friend of the pod. That's Renegade's thing. Oh, Seamus, what have you done?
That's that thing. They do have a lot of friends, but just because they have lots of friends doesn't mean we don't also have friends. But FPL Chieftain is a good friend of everyone.
Okay, fair enough. He's a bit of a Jesus figure.
He has a question here, and he's asked, how much has my wildcard changed since last week's episode? I assume this is what he means. And the answer is not much, but I've kind of already spelled out what kind of changes I'm thinking of. He's also asked, who are both mine and your differentials? That's the thing that's a good question, because part of the reason I'm thinking of not going for Aubameyang, who seems the obvious pick, and when I earmarked this wildcard, it was because of Aubameyang's crazy run of, or Arsenal's crazy run of fixtures that are coming up, where it's just all blue in the ticker. But as I said, there's some ones there that aren't as good as they seem on the ticker. Lots of blue on the Fantasy Football Scout ticker, but I mean, Sheffield United away, Arsenal A have been terrible away from home, and B, Sheffield United have been very tight at the back.
Yeah, we talked about this in last week's episode. Sheffield United have been tight. Crystal Palace have one of the best defences in the league so far this season.
Wolves have finally got their act together.
Maybe it's a Wolves naissance. That's a horrible word. And Leicester, we've talked about them. Yeah, game week 13 against Southampton, I think they're going to score a fucking shit ton of goals. But yeah, I think they look easier in colour than they do on paper, if you get my drift.
And Aubameyang is 27% owned, whereas the likes of Wilson and Vardy are between the 10 and 15% owned mark. Now, obviously, Tammy is quite highly owned as well, but I'm having him for value, and you can't just have only differentials. He's going to be banging in goals, so I'm not going to not have him just because he's owned by a lot. So I'm thinking, instead of going to Aubameyang, I can just have these slightly lesser owned players, have two of them, and be more happy. So that's I'm kind of thinking that Wilson and Vardy might be my differentials. At the moment, I'm also looking at Yarmolenko, depending on what I do with Otamendi. I think one West Ham player could be good. Part of me is trying to get a bit smart and think maybe I'll get Anderson, but Anderson hasn't scored in forever, so I think Yarmolenko has to be the pick.
Yeah, I think I hate taking punts for the price that Anderson's coming in at. Especially when you have a player who's cheaper,
exactly,
who is on the eye looks like a better option.
And there's one player who I'm considering punting on, and that'd be Callum Hudson-Odoi, because I haven't gone for Tomori in defence. I have that third Chelsea slot. Haven't decided completely on it yet, but because I feel like that's a lot of Chelsea to be going for it. But yeah, it's going to be, fourth midfielder is going to be probably Callum Hudson-Odoi or Yarmolenko, I'm thinking at this point, unless I actually have more money if I downgrade Aubameyang.
So either way, how much is your wildcard changed? Not as much as it's going to change by the end of the game week.
Yeah, and that's going to be depending on the news conferences. He also wants to know, is the international break affected any of my picks? No, not a bit. I haven't really considered it at the moment. I'm glad to see that Sterling came off after scoring 2 goals and an assist in tonight's game after 73 minutes. So I'm assuming he hasn't got injured, because I think him and Barkley were taken off at the same time. As long as he's not injured, I'm happy that he hasn't played the full 90 and he's got a good bit of rest before the weekend's fixtures. So that's about it. I'm not going to be looking for anything else. And I think we've one more question. Let me dig it out here. Yeah, last question that we've received this week. Lukewarm FPL, that's at FC Lukewarm. He is doing quite well in our mini league, I think, at the moment.
Top 5, I think he might be 4.
Yeah, he's considering going a bit off template. Like I was just saying, I'm thinking of looking at the lower owned players and spreading his funds around more. He's getting a reasonably strong bench to have good coverage for this pep roulette or pep rotation and be able to avoid some tricky fixtures. So he's thinking of selling Son and Greenwood after the Watford game for Fraser and Jimenez. What do we think of that?
Well, straight away, the name that's going to be ringing alarm bells for me when I read that tweet is Fraser. I know that there's rumours that he's a bit ill at the moment. He hasn't started in the last 4 games. So I just wouldn't be touching a player that's, what's he now, 7.1, I think. He's dropped to 7.1. I wouldn't be touching a Bournemouth asset for 7.1 when I'm not sure that they're going to play for 90 minutes or even start. Especially when you have the likes of a Wilson there. I think Josh King for 6.5. Forward spots are tight right now, and again, that kind of depends, but I'd say even he's above Fraser in the pecking order for me in terms of Bournemouth assets that I'd be looking at. What about you, Seamus?
I prefer both those picks as well.
What picks?
Wilson and King. I prefer both those picks. Looking at it, I mean, Fraser hasn't started any of the last 4.
Yeah.
The last start he had was in game week 4 against Leicester. He's come on for minutes in many of those games. Didn't come on at all in game week 7.
That's what's got me worried about this so-called illness, is I don't actually buy it too much. I think if you were ill, you just rest him non-stop until he gets better.
I think he had a knock and he was managing some sort of injury or hamstring problem or tightness, and like they brought him on in those games there to, I don't know, help them win or something, or give him some game time. And then I think most recently he might have missed the West Ham game with an illness or something like that. So I don't really know, and it's not very clear, and you can't get anything out of Eddie Howe in the press conferences because he just straight up lies.
Yeah.
He's
as
like,
you should.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, no problems this weekend. Bam, fucking this person's out with an injury. Why didn't you tell us?
Well, there's rumours that Callum Wilson's also picked up a bit of a knock. But he's
don't be telling me that. What?
Yeah, there's talk. There's talk. But this is international break, Seamus. You know that like flags are thrown around like fucking condoms on an open day at a college.
The other thing as well is Brooks should be back soon. In the next couple of weeks as well. And if like Fraser is out of favour or does have any knocks, then Brooks is probably going to come in soon. So I'm not sure I like the Fraser pick. I mean, watch this week, and if he starts this week, and especially if he plays well, then yeah, I would move on to him I would be happy to move on to him pretty quick, and it might be good. I do like the Jimenez shout. Wolves do have some nice fixtures coming up, and I think they can score against anyone. So even that Arsenal fixture in game week 11 isn't a worry. So, and it looks like they might have started to get the rhythm from the season and have adjusted to playing this Thursday night, Sunday kind of European football kind of.
I wouldn't count any chickens until they hatch. I mean, they beat City at the last game week, and that's a fantastic sign, and hopefully they can continue to move on from that. But I'd still be giving Wolves a bit more time. I think with Jimenez for his price point, and you mentioned Fraser, why not invest that extra bit and just go from Jimenez to Wilson? Is what I would be looking at, and then instead of a Fraser, you could be looking at a Yarmolenko. I think you mentioned that you were looking at Yarmolenko in your wildcard team, and I think he's a great shout. And if I was dropping Salah down to turn Greenwood into Aubameyang,
he was dropping Son down, but
but if I was, I'm dropping to Yarmolenko myself is what's kind of the plan at the moment. So makes sense to me. Considering going off template, I mean realistically, template
Son isn't template at the moment anyway. So.
No, he isn't, and template for me is a bit of an odd word. I'm very much, of the mind frame that you get the players in that you think will get the most points, especially this part of the season. Get the players in that you think will get the most points, regardless of who or what owns them.
I mean, all these players that you're going to choose from are going to be somewhat part of the template. They're only, and what we always say is like the template is only the template for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then the template shifts. So you could get in Jimenez and Fraser, and they could be the template in 3 weeks' time after banging in 2 goals in their next 2 games. So it's only a template for so long. You're not going to sell them after something like that and then everyone getting them in. Son, I just do not fancy Spurs at the moment. I still don't think they're necessarily going to get this win at the weekend against Watford. They probably will get over the line just because Watford have looked abysmal this season.
If I had Son going into the Watford game, he's a captain option for me.
But he's a definite keep, and he is a captain option, but I can't be confident that they'll get a result at that weekend. And then after that game, then you're talking Liverpool. I still foresee some trouble for Spurs in the next few. Although, I do expect them to stumble their way to victory this weekend.
No, either way, I hope it fails horribly for you, Luke, because we're coming to get you at the top of that FPL Hangover podcast mini league, all in one go. Didn't flub it, boom. And yeah, that's the end of the questions, and let's get to the league. We touched on it last week. We won't go into it in too much detail this week, but we did have a storming brand new entry last week, just before the league closed. Am I right, Seamus? The league is closed now?
We've closed the league.
We have them all in. All the horses are in the stable. The gate's been locked. You're all there now for the ride, lads. Ride.
Yeah, if you wanted to get into that mini league, you missed your chance. We told you. We might open it for a week at Christmas for people.
No.
If they get onto us and they send us
nice presents. I've swallowed the key, Seamus.
All right. Well, look, then we can't get in. But we do have a new leader who has displaced David Sexton at the top, and we have David Grant, or was Eric Braspenning? Had he gone top? They were switching places for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think David was top. Maybe Braspenning had it the week before, but yeah, Sexton and Braspenning were basically battling it out for head honcho there, and out from underneath them, the carpet was swept, and in came David Grant.
Yeah, so Bearded Bozo's team are on 526 points, overall rank of 605. Yeah, so we've got representation in the top 1,000. He scored 47 points in game week 8. He had Pierre Van Aanholt, who got that penalty. Captain Raz didn't come in, but he had plenty of other point scorers. He had Tammy, Mount, Lundstrom, Pope.
Yeah.
He actually had Kelly and Dunk on his bench, so he could have even had an even better game week.
Yeah, but totally, justifiable to leave Dunk on the bench against Spurs. So I mean, don't blame him for that.
No, fair play, David, and we look forward to seeing how you get on through the rest of the season. But we are coming for you. Well, I'm not, but Jer's coming for you.
Yeah, like a rabid dog.
I'll see you after Christmas.
And that brings us to our last segment before we wrap up this pod. Seamus, do you have any idea what that last segment might possibly be?
It's that time of the evening where you got to get your balls to the wall. So yeah, let's start with last week's picks.
Yeah, we didn't touch it in the last episode.
We didn't mention it in the last episode because we nattered on for too long, and there's no point going over it twice.
We had to save something for this week. We were afraid to be nothing to talk about.
You smashed me last week. I got it completely wrong with my hot shots. Okay, don't stop trying to cheat. I'll tell you. Wait. Okay. I first pick and I went with Aubameyang, who only could manage to hit the post last week, and he only got 2 points. I also had Pookie, who we all know completely failed. So yeah, that was 3 points, and you beat me with even though KDB didn't even play because you did your picks before his injury was confirmed. So with one player, you beat me with Mane.
Boom.
Goal and assist and bonus points. So fair play. That pulls it back a bit. I had actually gotten ahead of you 4-2 in the hot shots this season, but now it's 4-3. So we're keeping it tight.
That's what I wanted to do. Last year was a bit of a kind of stale,
it's one horse race.
It was
you ran away with it, yeah.
But it was a stale story after about 5 fucking episodes. It was like, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm beating you again.
Yeah, well, at least even though it's tight, I am that one ahead of you. And on the puck fadas, I'm going to call this a win as well. Technically, it's only on a technicality. You went first, and you went Yarmolenko last week, who got a yellow card and only got 1 point. And my choice was Wood up front, and he got 2 points. So that's a technicality win.
You did.
I don't like calling those wins. That feels like there's 2 blanks. I shouldn't even get the win, but yeah, we'll take it.
It's got to be done, Seamus. You gotta jump off the fence, and yeah, fair enough. You won, and you picked your puck fados up. You said I was ahead of you in the hot shots. Have you been counting the puck fados?
Yeah, it's 4-3 on that as well. So we had been level. You were doing much better, you're doing better on that. So for a couple of weeks, and now I'm back ahead.
Boom. Okay, so you're top all around.
The Breen sheets. That was the one part of this last week that I actually did well. So I called it with the Burnley clean sheet, and I went with Tarkowski, who got 3 bonus as well, and ended up with 9 points. 9. And you chose Diop, and he got 1 point.
Diop, yeah. I mean, that West Ham match, I really put some faith in them last week, Seamus, and they let me down.
West Ham are that team I can never figure out, but I don't mind going for, a midfielder.
You have Fredericks in your team.
Yeah, he'll come in occasionally. What I like about him is I've noticed, while I was always worried about Zabaleta being a rotation risk because of Zabaleta, I've noticed like Zabaleta's only played like one game this season, so I'm like, oh wait, he's not actually.
No, and I think as we've mentioned on several other players, like for the price point, you shouldn't be that worried about, a 4.5 defender.
No, they have great fixtures. He's really only there for game weeks 10 and 11.
Yeah, fair enough.
2 home games against Sheffield United and Newcastle. Yeah.
So who did I pick last week? Did you say?
You went with Diop.
Oh, the West Ham. Yeah, that's what we were talking about. Fuck's sake. Yeah, no. Well, look, fair enough. You've beat me in the Breen Sheets last week. Where are we in that?
On that, we are not doing so well because we're only getting points if we actually. You had to ask me when I changed the page.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's what you get for using pages in this day and age, Seamus. Save the fucking rainforest, man.
Where are we? Okay, here we go. I'm 3-2 up on you in that one as well.
Okay, so
I went ahead with this week's last week's pick, so it's all to play for. Yeah. This could be all level with a clean sweep if you get a clean sweep next week.
We're gonna have to come up with a forfeit for this at some stage. Perhaps when we're level,
Yeah. Like a half marathon or something like that.
Oh yeah, easy. Yeah. I mean, I'd bang one of them out in my sleep.
Yeah. So this week you had first pick with the hot shots and.
Well, I went with someone that not someone that you kind of dismissed, but you did dismiss Spurs against Watford, and I feel quite differently. I think Spurs are going to be looking for a reaction. I don't know when it's going to come, but I'm hoping it's this week, and I think Watford is a plum fixture for it to happen in. I've gone with a Mr. Harold Cain. He is my top hotshot for the week. I think he's going to...
You fancy him more than Son?
Yeah. I mean, not like...
Are you thinking about the fact that Son is probably being away on international duty might have reduced minutes or be rested altogether?
Yeah, something like that. I just think like in general, if I was having him in my team long term, I think Son's a better pick for the price and position. But for this 1 week, I think Spurs need someone to, show a bit of character and a bit of stiff upper lip, as the Tans would say. And
who better than the English captain who just scored a goal and 3 assists in tonight's game against Bulgaria?
Did he get 3 assists?
3 assists, and he got a goal in the 86th minute there to.
Yeah, I believe he got a penalty in the defeat in the first qualifier as well.
Did he? Yeah. I think you might be right on that.
So I'm going with Harry Cain. He's my number one puck fodder, or my number one hotshot, and because I got to go first, that means you got the next 2 picks, and you've gone with.
I went with Wilson. I think we've said enough about him. But I expect goals in that Norwich game. And if Bournemouth score first, they could put a good few past Norwich. Now, if Norwich score first in that game, who knows how it could go. But yeah, when Norwich fall behind, it's game over, baby. So
Norwich away this season haven't shown us a fucking thing. I know they scored once against Liverpool, but that was when they were 4-0 down.
Yeah, so you got to think that Wilson's going to be a great shout this week. In fact, anything. King might be even a better shout because Norwich seem to love giving away penalties because they're shambles at the back.
Yeah,
they're just not good defensively at all.
It's a good point, and that is a feather in the cap of Josh King. He scored in the internationals as well. This break, he banged in a goal. I think it was a penalty as well against Spain. I think it was.
Fair play to him.
Yeah.
I haven't even looked. I'll look at all this now on Friday night, see who got the goals and who did well.
Read back on the scout, read through all the oaks.
Exactly, yeah. Do me homework. It's a bit early for homework. The internationals aren't even over yet. But King is not my pick. Wilson is my pick. And my second pick then is Tammy Abraham. And they are against Newcastle. So Newcastle are the other team I try and target when I'm looking at fixtures, especially when Newcastle are away. Chelsea have been banging in goals. Wouldn't trust them defensively too much, but this game week I would. Against a weak Newcastle team.
Fair enough. I think that's a solid pick. Abraham would have definitely been the player I'd have snatched up if you didn't have a chance to get in there ahead of me. I've gone with another player that we've talked quite a bit about on this episode, and that's Jamie Vardy. I think Leicester have a nice fixture at home to Burnley. I think Leicester are, they're about to embark on a run that they're going to want to pick up some points from, especially after the Liverpool game. They played United, shortly before that, and I think this could be the hopefully it's the start to kind of what we all have seen is a possibility for Leicester.
Vardy's the sort of player who thrives with space to run into, and when defensive teams or teams are defending with a high line and stuff like that, and especially when they're attacking and they can catch them on the break. So playing at home to Burnley, you're thinking Burnley are going to be dropping deep. Are they going to have that kind of space? I'm not too sure, but Vardy does look like he's on form this season. I wouldn't be surprised if this game finished 1-0 and it was a Feherty goal.
Yeah, 3 bonus.
To be honest, yeah, and yeah, something like. Well, when he scores, he gets bonus, is what we see, because he only shoots when he shoots, he scores. He might not shoot all game, but when he shoots, he'll find the net or it keeps him on target at least. So that's good for the bonus points. So that's not a bad shout there. You'll notice those are all forwards. This is a very forward heavy episode. I think we spent the majority of the pod talking about forwards.
Yeah, I think it was a forward themed episode, and if we were doing cheesy names for each episode, I guarantee you this would be forward based. But there is something else worth noting about this week, and that's that not one of these players were from Man City or Liverpool.
Yeah, that's got to be a first.
I think it's definitely been a first for this season. Maybe we had a couple of weeks last year where we were City and Liverpool-less, but this year I'm pretty sure we nearly every week we've had one of at least one of us has had one.
Yeah, last week I didn't choose one Man City or Liverpool player myself, and that went terrible.
Yeah, and I got Mane, who actually won me the game week. So hopefully I don't get fucked over this week. And I think Cain, Feherty, Wilson, Abram, 4 solid shouts, hot shots up your ass.
Only one player over 10 million there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of value this season.
Yeah, there is. And this is why I want to spread around my money.
Yeah.
But look, onto the puck fadas, which are basically our long shots for those who we're not native Irish speakers. I was first this week, and there was a good few options to choose from this week. I went with Wesley in the end for Aston Villa after he got a couple of goals in the last game week, and I think he's a functional forward, and I think Aston Villa are pretty good at home, and Brighton, while they impressed me in the last game, still not convinced of them away from the Amex. So I'm going to go with them.
I think that's a fair shout. I mean, I think Villa are a solid looking team at home. They scored 5 in the last match against Norwich. So, there's definitely goals to be had in that Villa-Brighton game. I don't think it's the same as it was last year. Villa at home to Brighton last year, I know Villa obviously weren't in the league, but a promoted team at home to Brighton last year, I'm predicting very little goals. Brighton are going to be putting everyone behind the ball. But this year, Brighton seem to be, willing to attack. And after their, demolition of Spurs, they're going to feel pretty confident. They'll have a bit of a spring in their step. So I see him coming at Villa, and Wesley's not a bad shout. 2.6% owned. He got 2 goals and an assist, I believe, last week. I also missed a penalty. He definitely got 2 goals, missed a penalty. So yeah.
Oh, he did. Shout. He got an assist as well. Actually, right?
He did, yeah. So quite a few points, and not a bad shout. But I do believe when we were picking this before we hit record, you realised after I had made my choice who you would have rather picked.
Yeah.
And it's the definition of a puck fada. We've had questions on Hudson-Odoi this episode, and there you go. Hudson-Odoi was my pick, 1.1% owned. We've touched on whether or not he's an FPL asset. He is the very definition of a puck fada. I'll tell you that much. I don't know.
At the moment, I mean, in 2 weeks' time, he could be essential.
Yeah.
Because he's only after returning from injury.
I don't think he's going to be essential. I think Mount is going to always...
He won't be essential because Mount is like the same kind of price bracket. Hudson-Odoi is actually cheaper, but if you miss the Mount train, you're going to be wanting to get on to Hudson-Odoi.
You need to come up with another set of vehicles.
It's all just trains. It's all trains, basically.
Because it's goddamn games on fucking tracks, Seamus.
Because then you can say they crashed or came off the rails and stuff like that. There's loads you can do with these. Loads of puns you can make.
Yeah.
But basically, going back to Hudson-Odoi, last week I wasn't very convinced when people were talking about, should we be getting him in our wildcard? It was like, the dude started 1 game. I know he's got an assist, but he started 1 game. But now he started 2 games and he's got 2 assists. And he's looked really sharp.
Picked up something in the Champions League.
I know. People kind of, people make a lot out of that. But I'm like, I just want to see how he's playing in the league, in the Champions League or Europa League or whatever they're in.
Champions League.
It is Champions League. You're right. You're kind of wondering, that could be a different squad in the Premier League the next day. But it does sound like Frank likes him based on what he said. So at the moment I've had my head turned. I'm thinking he's a good option.
I definitely, I haven't had my head turned. I think between Mount and Abraham, that's all the attacking options with Chelsea I need, to be perfectly honest with you. If you were coming at this, like you said, you hadn't already got a Mount in your team, and you gave it a couple of weeks, Hudson-Odoi seems like he ticks all the boxes for what Lampard's looking for, in the sense that, young, attacking, blah, blah, blah.
I'm considering tripling up, if I'm honest. I am considering tripling up, but I haven't decided. But don't be too surprised if you look at my team and find I've gone Tammy, Mount, and Hudson-Odoi.
I will be surprised, Seamus.
Okay.
Regardless of what you say.
Okay. Damn it, that's like you're trying to dare me into doing it now.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like, fuck this guy, I'm going to get this.
This was the reason I wanted to record on Monday as well. I wanted to freshly wreck your head for the next couple of days before, deadline day. And, I really want to throw a few...
We haven't seen each other in a week, and you're like, I haven't wrecked this man's head in, like, way too long. I need to, like, start playing some mind games.
Yeah, pretty much. And mind games brings us right on to Breen Sheets.
How?
I don't know.
What's the segue there, Jared?
I was hoping you wouldn't pull me on it. I was going to maybe give myself a sentence to see if I could explain it, but no, I just said it because it made sense. But Breen Sheets this week, Seamus, you had first pick because you did beat me last week with the Burnley clean sheet, and that gives you the honour of going ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'm going for Tomori. Chelsea at home, Newcastle, who don't look like they've got a whole lot of goals in them. Chelsea don't look very strong defensively, but I don't think Newcastle got any goals in them away from home. So, yeah, I think that's a nice one there. There's lots of good options around, but, yeah, that's where I went.
Yeah, Tomori's a decent shout. I think my only worry would be, if I'm correct, Chelsea have only the one clean sheet so far this season. Maybe they have two. Two is the absolute max they have.
I think they might have one. That's it.
They definitely have one. But there's a chance they had the second. But no, I think Chelsea, decent shout. As you said, Newcastle are pretty toothless right now. So as far as an option, Tomori is starting this week on my team, so can't disagree with your pick there. I've gone with a player that I don't have in my team, and I always like to do this with the puck fadas. I like to give myself a little extra player to root for throughout the game week, and I went with a Mr. Bolly this week. I think Wolves are at home to Southampton. We saw them keep City out in the last game week, and Southampton are struggling for goals. They have Shea Adams, who is the lucky owner of the least accurate striker this season. Statistic.
Wow.
I don't know if I said that right, but you get the gist. And so I feel like Wolves might be able to kind of continue on their form a bit, and who better than Bolly?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a couple of wins for Wolves in the next few. I think they're going to pull up the league. Basing it on nothing. Well, no, I'm basing it on they beat Man City.
And you're basing it on last year's performance.
Yes. So I just think they've managed to find the right balance between Thursday and Sunday, and they kind of now know what they need to do, and they were not getting as much training in, but they're kind of more tactically aware, and they've options. Yeah.
Well, look, I'm not entirely as convinced as you are by Wolves, but by as evidenced by my Breen sheets, I'm more than happy to take a chance this week. And for anyone looking for a 5 million defender clean sheet, I do think you could do far worse than Wolves. But that brings us to the end of the balls to the wall. Before we wrap this up, Seamus, I wanted to ask you a quick question, because we are running short on time. Who are you thinking of captaining this week?
That is a really good question. That is the one where I am thinking. That's the real reason I want to get in Wilson.
Yeah,
I think Wilson is definitely a captainable option. I'd consider Tammy Abraham as well. Those are the two guys I went with in my hot shots. Mm-hmm. And I went with those because I think they've got fantastic fixtures. If I had Son, if I wasn't on a wildcard and I had like a Spurs player like Son, I'd captain him.
Yeah.
Don't know about Cain. Cain's burned me a couple of times with the captaincy, but I'd be more confident with Son.
But like you mentioned there, that Wilson, you're thinking of switching to Wilson. The person you're thinking of switching off is Aubameyang, and he's away to Sheffield United. Now, I know we've discussed Sheffield United a bit already in the episode, but are you not in any way enticed by that as a captain option?
Aubameyang, Sheffield United, no, I don't really like that one too much.
That must be a bitch having that in your wildcard.
Yeah, so I mean, I may still go with Aubameyang, but if I do go with Aubameyang and Wilson, it would be Vardy who's cut. But at the minute, I just prefer Wilson and Vardy, just because Vardy's more of a differential.
Fair enough. I think I wasn't expecting that, because the player who's standing out to me right now, and I have Wilson, is Abraham. Abraham at home to Newcastle. I think we've discussed the merits of Chelsea quite a bit, but that has to be a captain option, no?
Oh, completely. But I'm feeling, it could be a case in 4 weeks, 5, 6 weeks time. It's going to be, you just captain whoever Norwich are playing. That Man City game could be just such an anomaly that it's kind of blocking the obvious captain whoever is playing Norwich.
You think
whoever's the main striker. Goals against, yeah, I think they could. They still have, they're down to their third choice goalkeeper. Their defence is still a shambles. We'll see how many are back now after the international break, but like a lot of those injured centre backs were long-term injuries. So yeah, I don't know. I think we could be talking on the pod in 2 or 3 weeks time, kind of going, remember that time it wasn't an automatic lock that you're going to captain Callum Wilson against Norwich? Yeah, that was foolish. Remember he banged in 4 goals against them? Yeah, we should have seen that coming a bit more, But yeah, you're completely right with Tammy Abraham and
you could replace that sentence with Abraham. Remember that time we didn't captain Abraham after he was the highest transferred player in that week, or second highest, and he went on and scored a hat-trick against Newcastle, who were one of the weakest teams in the league.
Yeah, but the only worry with Newcastle is their only 2 wins this season have come against last season's top 6 opponents.
Were United even top 6 last season?
Yeah, they were.
Okay.
We were what? 5th? I can't remember.
Doesn't fucking feel
we were
like
6th, were we? Yeah, so United and Spurs. So maybe they kind of I don't think Lightning is going to strike thrice.
Yeah, plus I think United and Spurs, if you're going to talk about last season's top 6, you could also talk about this season's, most disappointing start to the season for, teams-wise. Spurs and United are up there. It's not like that was Newcastle playing fantastic. Both those teams have been shit so far.
But the reason that Spurs' season has been, our start to the season has been terrible is because they've lost to Newcastle. Had they beat Newcastle, then you could go,
I think
the Brighton game is an anomaly, but
I think Newcastle is just another brick in the wall of a construction that's been happening over the last couple of seasons. But look, that's fair enough. You're looking at Wilson. I'm looking at Abraham. We'll see what way the land lies after game week 9. We're going to wrap it up there. I want to thank you, Seamus, for really fucking with my head regarding Wilson. I didn't even seriously consider him over Abraham, but now that's going to break my brain.
Oh no, they're the 2 in my head right now. I don't even have Wilson in my team, so can I go without him this week? I mean, and then the following week against Watford, no, I gotta get him in.
Based on everything you said tonight, I can't believe he isn't in your team yet. You've just been Wilson.
Yeah,
well, that's a tough one to say 3 times.
And I think if I didn't have him in my team and if I had him in my team and I didn't have Aubameyang, this entire podcast would be talking about Aubameyang.
Yeah,
I think that's how it would go.
Yeah, fair enough. He was here to relieve some fantasy Premier League demons. But yeah, thanks for that, Seamus, and thanks to everyone who sent in a message this week. Anyone that wants to reach out to us, you can get us on Twitter at FPL Hangover. You can also reach us on our Gmail at fplhangover@gmail.com. I want to thank you all. I hope you enjoy game week 9.
And may your hours be green.
God bless.